Hey, what's up, Josh? How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great because I'm excited. We're going to talk about the Wild West.
The Wild West.
The Wild West of AI regulations because the government needs to do something about it, man.
Oh, so what we're talking about is taming the Wild
West. Yeah, we're going to tame it. The sheriff's in town, and once politicians get together and they work on technology that's racing so fast, they're going to be right on top of these things, right?
What they're gonna do is they're gonna log out of their AOL account, and then they're gonna start working on technology legislation.
Definitely. And hey, some states, actually get consultants. Hey, maybe we should be talking to some state representatives about being consultants about this and telling them what they need to regulate. So you know what? Let's just dive in, Dean, and let's give them some examples. Let's start with California, for example. I'll start off.
You want to dive in, Dean?
Yeah, I'm going to dive in, Dean. I'm going to start off with California's AB 2269. This law focuses on the use of AI in the hiring practices, and you've probably heard about this. I've heard about this. This is where, businesses use technology to rapidly go through resumes, and there is a concern that they're not transparent, fair, or non-discriminatory in their practice when using this with AI. So the protection, if enacted, this law would have aimed to regulate the use of AI in the hiring process to ensure transparency, fairness, and non-discrimination, and reducing the risk of bias. And I know that's been really talked about in a lot of states. A lot of people have been looking at this. But how does it stifle innovation? By increased regulation and compliance requirements, this might discourage companies from adopting AI-based hiring tools, potentially limiting the benefits of automating and streamlining this process, ergo costing them a lot of money. So that's what we're thinking about for this one. So wherever you come down on this, I mean, me personally, I like using tech to go through this when you get to set up the guidelines of like who you're looking to hire. Mm-hmm. But again, those are rules. There's already rules for that. So if you set the parameters up, but who's going to police the algorithm?
Yeah, I
just don't.
Because, it's bias in, bias out, right? So
yeah, exactly.
If you're going to take a list of 100 resumes and have AI go through them, well, it's going to go through them based on your prompt.
Yeah.
Hey, find me the best, electrical engineer, right? Is that all you're putting, or that will work in our culture, that will do this or that? And then when it comes back to you, if you have some bias, because, there's already been proven that if you have like an African-American sounding name, they get a lot less callbacks, right? Well,
yeah,
that's not stopping that.
Yeah, exactly. That's where, I understand why they want to make sure. But again, it's the data set that's being used, because that was where it was interesting, Dean. I saw this study where they were using, their company, for example, they said to the AI, we want more people like who work for us currently. And that created the bias because it just looked at the people who were working there like, well, then we shouldn't look at any of these people. Girls shouldn't work here, because we have no girls. I mean, stuff like that. So it's like,
I would find it interesting if AI can help look to judge us. Like, have I presented any bias? Here's the 200 resumes. Here's the 50 I picked. Analyze my implicit bias.
Yes.
Hey, Josh, did you ever hear that story of? I'm going to screw the years up. It was in the 1960s. It was the Chicago Philharmonic, and they were like 99 or at the time 100% men. And so the thinking of the day was, well, women just don't play any of these instruments. They're just not good enough or whatever. But there was, so they had their bias going in. And so what would happen is the judges, is that what you call them, judges? They would sit in the, in the audience, an empty auditorium audience, and then the person would come out and they would perform whatever instrument, the violin, the cello, whatever it may be, and they would perform. And they weren't picking any women. And so what the Chicago Philharmonic did is they screened it. So nobody knew who was coming in, going out, and you only listened to a person behind a screen. And immediately 25% of the hires became women.
Yeah. And in policing things like this, I think they'll use AI to do it. I think they'll go, we see a bias. The AI says there's a bias in your system, and that's when, hey, there's a slippery slope. But we need to move on because, our podcasts are too long. So what do you got next?
Okay, so Josh, I'm doing New York City Local Law 48. So this law is meant to establish that the Automated Decision System Task Force to review the city's use of algorithmic decision-making tools. The task force is responsible for examining the potential biases, okay, we're back to biases, and disparate impacts of these tools, providing recommendations to improve transparency and accountability. So anyway, so what the protection is, what they're trying to say is that by reviewing the city's use of an algorithm, algorithmic decision-making tools, the task force aims to ensure transparency, fairness, and accountability in government decisions. So what's the stifling of innovation risk? Because that's what we're talking about, the protection, the potential protection and potential innovation stifling. The increased scrutiny on automated decision systems could deter local governments and private companies from adopting tools, fearing potential controversies and negative public perceptions. All right, so Josh, what I got here is from Illinois. Do you say Illinois or Illinois?
Illinois.
Illinois. I say Illinois. All right. So they have an act called the Artificial Intelligence Video Interview Act. And so the law requires employers to inform job applicants when AI is being used in video interviews, and they have to obtain the candidate's consent. So the AI is being used to analyze and help the interviewer. So the protection is the law. Did you hear that New York come out? The law.
Yeah, this law is in Illinois, not New York.
This Illinois law ensures that job applicants are aware of the use of AI in video interviews and protects their privacy by requiring employers to acknowledge that they're using it and to delete the video upon request. So how does this protection stifle innovation? Well, the law might discourage companies from adopting AI-based tools to increase compliance requirements, and it could slow down the adoption of advanced HR technologies. So, Josh, we've already seen a common theme of what is the stifling innovation. It's that people like you and I are scared to use it. I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and I really think, you got people who would be paranoid that they're being judged by a robot, and you also have, that's really it. But you also have HR departments afraid of losing their job. So I see so many different angles with this one. But I don't have an issue with it. Just like, you have to be told if you're being recorded in general on most, every phone line you call, you call for customer service and they're like, your call's being recorded. Are you cool with that or not? So, I don't have an issue with it.
I don't either. And I think a lot of these things, because it's so new, that come up that are issues.
Yeah.
Are not issues in 6 months from now.
Exactly. It's
so Josh, do you see that video clip that's going around now? So this relates to it, right? So back in the 80s, when around the country we started enacting stricter drinking and driving laws and seatbelt laws, there's a video clip. I've seen it a couple times now on Instagram or something. And it's some guy in his pickup truck. Actually, both interviews are in a pickup truck. And he's like, I don't understand what's wrong with a man after a 10, 12-hour day working, having a beer or two, while I'm driving home, right? Yeah. And it talks about the government overreaching. And then it clips to some lady with total 80s hair, right? Like it was all teased to the moon. And she's in a pickup, and she's got a kid in a car seat. And she's talking about, I shouldn't have to, buckle up. What is this now, a communist country?
And she's probably smoking too. Isn't she smoking at the same time too?
I think she is. But
my
kid's in a car seat.
Yeah.
And she had a little, whiskey with her too. So anyway, the thing is, back then, a lot of people were up in arms, and now you don't even think
that's
about
when
it.
America was great, though. So.
I know. When you could sit on the airline and smoke a cigarette, 3 inches from the next guy, that's when we were great.
Yeah. And that said, let's go to this one. How about Maryland's SB 787? This bill
787.
787. This establishes a task force to study the use of AI in the state's criminal justice system. The task force will examine potential biases, ethical concerns, and the impact of AI on the criminal justice outcomes, and recommendations for best practices. This could have really, anyway, I'm not going to say protection. If enacted, this law would have established a task force to study the use of AI in criminal justice, potentially leading to recommendations for best practices and regulations to prevent biases and ensure ethical use. I see all pluses here. I really do.
Yeah.
But stifling, how would this stifle innovation? Increased scrutiny on AI usage in the criminal justice system might lead to more cautious adoption of these technologies, limiting the potential benefits of AI, identifying patterns and solving crimes, and improving efficiency in the justice system. Let me say what it's funny. I really think it would find bias in the system. People already know from regular old-fashioned studies that there's biases in the system. And this, if it had bad data or it had a bad result once, or they could disprove, they'll throw it out. So I really want this to be adopted. It was one of these things I just saw in this drug study. They were talking about how, and this is totally will sound off base, but they were talking about how hallucinogenic drugs were really brought about for the use in psychology, and how there were amazing benefits with it. But because of its people using it recreationally made it like scary, all of a sudden its real medical purposes were just thrown out. It was just like, we can't use that. Same thing here. If AI if it goes bad, when I say if it goes bad, say it would come back and they could prove it was biased in its answer, they would just go, oh, we can't ever use this ever again. That's how humanity reacts to things.
Yeah. So, Josh, you just brought this up today.
Yeah.
You were talking about a company that had their employees start to be more helpful to customers walking out with stuff, right? Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Helps the customers. One employee dropped one inexpensive item, and then the person running the show said, that's it, we're not touching any more stuff.
We're never helping anyone ever again because that cost us $20 instead of the goodwill and all the new business that would bring you. But that's also with AI. If my fear is, because it's so new and it's still using data sets that we don't know where they came from, it makes a mistake and does something, and then they just throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I'm afraid of that, because here is a use that I'm totally behind them using it to study incarceration, because we're the capital of the world in incarceration here in the United States. Yep.
Yeah, so I agree, Josh. I think that we have to always stick to everything that we said. Is if you put any bias into it, you're going to get some bias out of it. So we have to continuously, monitor that to make sure it's not biased.
It's where humans' critical thinking comes in, where you have to look at, could my prompting, we talk about the DJ, the prompting, my question I ask, could that have led it astray in the first place? So we have to be really careful with how we prompt, how we ask these questions, because I'm sure, and just like that, it could be manipulated to go the other way, to go, is there any bias in the system? Absolutely not. Well, see, it said so, that there's not. Yeah, but you didn't ask it the right question. Do you see any socioeconomic bias in there? What?
So everything you said makes sense, except you made the assumption that people have critical thinking skills.
Yes. No, my favorite thing I learned today was that politicians that speak to you at a third grade level have a far superior result in their elections than people who speak at even an eighth or ninth grade level. Yeah. The person that spoke at a third grade level was more likely to win their election than someone that spoke above an eighth or ninth grade level. Isn't that wonderful? It's like great.
Yeah, that is funny.
So we'll leave you with that. Speaking of the Wild West.
It reminds me of the Simpsons episode where the Mensa Society in Springfield, Lisa and some of the others, they take over running
Yeah.
the town, and it's a disaster because they can't communicate.
No one. What are those?
Their 8th grade communication with the 3rd grade, Springfield residents.
Yeah, it's true. But hey, all we can do is get better with AI.
With AI.
Yeah.
Are hopefully biased towards you and I.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks, Josh.
I hope everybody enjoyed that. Remember, subscribe to our channel and you'll learn more things like this or waste 10, 15 minutes of your life.
No. Only waste 7 or 8 minutes. A couple of minutes are worth it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. All right. See you, Josh.
Take care.